call the engineering committee to order. And have you taken the roll call, Ann?
They don't do that here.
Let's see. Oh, that's right, it just says call to order, not roll call. All right, item number 1, the solar project, replacement project.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was just to clarify, this is not the district-wide solar project, it's the replacement of these inverters.
Just for the administrative facility.
Ah.
That's all this is, yeah.
Okay, well, let's hear what you got to
And
say.
as you know, we have an existing system.
Right.
It was deployed 10 years ago?
Yeah, but
Over 12.
Yeah,
12
we'll
years
go
ago.
over some more of the details,
Uh-huh.
but it's stopped working a little while ago, and this is really talking about how do we get it restarted, so.
Yeah, so just to let you know, this is an operations project, and Dennis Bowman, he's our purchasing supervisor. He's really the lead on this, and engineering's just got involved to kind of help him with contracts and those kind of things. So Dennis can jump in if I get anything wrong, but like Glenn mentioned, it's an existing system. You've got an exhibit there that kind of shows you where it is. You know, we have the solar panels up on the carports.
I remember when you got the grid.
It's a 360 kW system that processes the DC through 2 central inverters. Like Glenn said, those went out several years ago. At the time they went out, we were getting about 70 to 100,000 in savings annually, and that's conservative. We think we're getting more, but being conservative, that's kind of what we say is that was our savings per year for the system. So those went out. We put a project together last June. You approved that project. You awarded a contract to Baker Electric to replace those central inverters. And just so you know, when we put this project together, we talked to the manufacturer, said, do you have a replacement? Yes, here's a quote, 75,000, something like that. I said, good. So we knew that they had inverters. And we have the contract with Baker Electric. They place the order. The manufacturer calls and says, those inverters are no longer functioning. They're in a warehouse somewhere. They open the boxes, I imagine. They look at the parts, they're corroded. They don't function. Those parts are so expensive. The company has decided, we're not going to replace them. We cancel the order. You're done. So Baker comes to us, tells us this. They're doing their research. They're trying to come up with options all on their dime. Perfect. Great. Let us know what you come up with. They come back. They say there's no other central inverters that we can replace them with because the central inverters currently today start at 500 kW. You're at 360. The technology, as you know in solar, the technology company is the technology is advancing rapidly. So that our system is just below the operating window that the manufacturers want to provide inverters for. So they say, okay, here's your options. You can go to string inverters. String inverters are sort of what the market has gone to currently. In 10 years, who knows? But right now it's string inverters. So they bring us 2 options, and those 2 options I've got there for you. So it's the, I think it's pronounced Kahua, but it's a Chinese company, so it might be Kakua. I don't know. But those inverters, which the string inverters break up the whole panel system into groups, if you understand that. Okay, so I'm not going to explain that, but the Chent inverters have many more groups, so they would break it up into 18 different groups. And that, what you see in that column is the net increase to the existing contract that Baker has. So they have a contract for 154. If we went with the Kahua inverters, it'd be an additional 34. If we went with the Chent inverters, it'd be an additional 129. So pros and cons to each. The Kahua inverters are cheaper, so it's kind of a no-brainer. But there are risks. I think those risks are acceptable risks. It's a newer company, and by newer I mean that company has been around since the late 80s. But they've been doing more solar battery technology. They're now getting into the string inverter business. Satcon, who will rep them here in the U.S., is backing, is promoting this product. We think that we're going to get more customer service from them. They're really looking at this as sort of they need this project to succeed.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so we're going to get a lot from them. The Chent inverters, obviously more expensive. They're much more, they have a much stronger track record. But those particular inverters do not meet the current SDG&E rules in California. Now, we don't fall under those rules because we're grandfathered in, but the the thinking is that the rest of the country are going to adopt California's more stringent rules, and those inverters now will become obsolete.
What don't they
It-
meet?
It's they call it Rule 21, and it has to do with
The grounding, the current grounding situation is not fused, and the new grounding system are fused. That's the new rule for the 21.
So the Kahua are fused and the others aren't?
they are Rule 21 compliant. Yeah, they are compliant. So again, does it affect us? Yes, no. There's risk in solar because the way the technology's rapidly advancing and the volatility in the companies. Companies could go out tomorrow, they can get bought, they can get sold, products become obsolete, but what they're offering, both are offering a 10-year warranty. Inverters typically have a 10 to 12-year life, so that's sort of an industry standard, so there's no differences in those two. So when we evaluated this, and when I say we, Dennis, myself, we kind of looked at this and said, hey, the Kahua option makes the most sense. It's a 2 to 3 year payoff. Well, actually, we think it's about a year and a half payoff for the entire contract, which is the 154 plus the 34 change order if we were to go that route. So if we get another, and right now we're not getting any savings from our existing system and haven't been. So if we can put this in, we get another 10 to 12 years life out of it. Great. Our solar panels now, they're at about 50% of their life anyways. In another 10 years, we think they're going to produce 80% of their original
There's still value.
output?
There's still value. in
Yeah,
the
they're still out there.
Yeah.
So we're not saying in 10 or 12 years it's all done. No, we should be able to continue getting savings, but there's risks.
Because they lose about 1% a year
Yeah.
in production.
But
It-
they
it-
both have the same warranty
Yes.
time?
Yeah.
And just to clarify, even though people say there's a 20 to 25-year life in solar panels, really what that means is the manufacturer guarantees that they'll be operational to a certain performance standard for 20 years. After that, if it just falls apart and dies, the manufacturer, there's no warranty. But
Yeah.
there's a good chance that it can continue
Sure,
at 80% plus,
I see.
for a long time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe reducing, like I said,
Yeah.
about 1% a year.
Who's the warranty through? Is it through Kahua or is it through Setcom?
I would think it would be through Kahua.
Well,
Because
Kahua
they're
is
the
supporting
manufacturer.
it through
Yeah, I'm not
Setcom.
sure. Yeah.
Setcom's the local rep.
Yes.
Yes.
And that's the
out of
same
San
company
Jose.
that we were going to get the central inverters.
They were the same company that we were going to get the central inverter. Yeah, they were. They provided the original inverters that we have now that aren't functioning. That company went away. They came back. So we did look at other options, actually we talked about other options. We never really considered them, but that is to abandon the system completely. We could start from scratch. These don't seem like good options, but just wanted to let you know that there are other options if you wanted to go that route. So replacing, so that change order of 34,000, it's above what staff can do. That requires a full board approval per our ordinance 146. I put kind of a budget here. We've got a budget of 295. We've got a contract with Baker of 154. We have an estimate of change orders that could happen that we budget for of 15,000. Staff and overhead 16.5. We've actually already spent that.
Didn't stop working.
right, exactly. We've got a $35,000 line item. That's for some repairs and cleaning to the panels that we will do outside of Baker's contract. So at the time that we awarded this to Baker, the budget that we thought we would spend is 221, obviously way under that 295. Now we've got a potential change order of 34,000. We've added some staff time because we think, well, we've spent the money, so we need to allocate a little bit more time for staff to wrap this up. We think we're going to be around 267. We think there's still going to be a surplus. I'm not asking for a budget adjustment because we don't know what's going to happen with staff time and other change orders, so we're just saying the recommendation is to approve the change order and keep moving forward.
Yeah.
But we wanted to bring this forward to the committee to just see if that is the correct direction.
And the way it works is we have a sliding scale. So on a smaller job, staff is allowed by policy or is it ordinance or policy?
Ordinance.
Okay,
Or
but,
change order?
yeah, it's ordinance,
Ordinance.
but by ordinance, 10%, and then when a project reaches like $1 million and it goes to 7.5%, without having to bring it to the board, this way we can instantly react
Yeah.
to contractors' needs.
Uh,
This would be above that 10%.
Yeah. Right,
It's
and-
like 22%.
Can we get a confirmation one way or the other where the warranty is coming from?
Sure.
Because not that it, I guess it really doesn't make a great deal of difference, but I'd feel more personally comfortable if it was from the S company as opposed to the K company,
Yeah.
only because they obviously have been around and working with us for some time, so.
Yeah.
And I can imagine everybody's looking for this so that they can point to, well, we put one in San Marcos.
Yep.
And, you know, as opposed to, well, we never put one anywhere.
Yep.
So I think you're right. I think we will get more attention, and I think that's a benefit.
You know how these things work. In 10 years, the inverters will fail because they last about 10 years, and then there'll be new inverter technologies, and we'll have to figure out what to do then.
Right.
Probably solar projects.
Yeah.
and
I mean, it's
things
just
are
like
changing some.
The panels we have today, they don't manufacture those anymore.
And out of that 80 to $100,000 a year of savings, how is that? What percentage is that over our overall expenditure for electric?
Talking to Wes, and this is just a 1-year estimate. The number was closer to 130,000. But the original time, 10, 12 years ago, basically the building used about $100,000 worth of electricity in cost. Rates have gone up, so that's why now we use like 150.
Well, yeah, the latest number we have, this is real data it's about a year old, we use about $155,000 worth at this facility.
Yeah.
The whole facility?
For the
Yes.
year.
Right, and so,
What's the district's
So it's
total?
90% is what it's getting. So at the time that we got the grant, we saved roughly $90,000 a
Mhm.
year was the estimate. And it's 90% because that was the maximum amount for government agencies that they would allow for a grant for a commercial solar installation. While at your home it could be 100%, or you could even overproduce. Here it was 90, so there was no incentives above 90%.
So is this net meter back?
Yeah, this is a net meter. Yep. And we're grandfathered into 2020 whenever, based on the old rules.
2027 or something.
You started to ask a question about total usage.
Yeah, just curious, the total bill for the district-wide?
Close to $1 million.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I
I'd
don't
say
know
in the
that.
million range. Our biggest single one is Meadowlark, and that's
Okay.
about $450,000
Okay.
a year, $450,000 a year.
okay. Well,
So this technology, this particular string inverter and this manufacturer wouldn't tie us to any particular panel. If we need to replace panels, they're all kind of just have like a pigtail you plug in and off you go.
Yeah, I think right now, the strategy is that as panels fail, that we would sort of take that section, that group, that string of panels off, and then use them as replacement as other panels from other strings die off.
Yeah, sir.
And then at some point, who knows, could be 10 years, could be 30 years.
Old panel strings, newer panel strings.
Yeah,
basically.
we would maybe look
Mhm.
at going to new panel technology, but it's anybody's guess.
But you wouldn't be tied into any particular panel manufacturer.
Yeah, I think they're interchangeable. Plug into
And
that.
if I may, we haven't replaced one panel due to failure. The only time we've replaced it is from damage from the ball field.
and when that happens, does the city step up?
Absolutely.
Yes.
It's in the
We,
agreement.
we have a process, we
Yeah.
have everybody, and they've
Mm.
been very diligent.
How
on-
often does that happen?
Often.
That really?
Well,
Really?
they put up
Even
higher
with the nets
fences.
now?
Remember, you may recall that the higher nets weren't there, and after they got their first bill, the higher nets
So
went
how
up.
mu- how much
Or maybe it
was
was the second bill.
How
They
much-
got a bill for 20 grand once. They got
28.
28 grand, and then they got another bill for 10 or 12.
12. We've done it 4 different times,
Yeah.
and we've noticed it hasn't been from our local little
Tournament.
leaguers. It's when they hold the tournament.
Ah,
And the other little leagues that come in from other areas.
Price of tournaments is going to start going up.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there's now signs that they put up for a while that said you're being watched under surveillance. There's not a single camera in sight, but there's signs that they
Yeah.
put out. And, so don't throw
and
rocks.
is it because, I don't know the arrangement of the fields, is it Foul balls, home runs, what?
Rocks. Rocks.
Rocks.
Yeah, kids throwing rocks onto the panels. It makes a very satisfying pop noise.
Oh,
Great.
for the devils. Okay, well, that's the answer to that. All right, I do have a speaker slip here. Let's see, who could that be?
He's doing number 2.
He's on number 2.
Yeah.
Oral. Oh, did we have no oral?
That's
So do we
at the
need
end.
Okay.
formal action? and-
I think staff is just looking for concurrence for the committee to
Mhm.
move forward with this.
I think
Yeah, because we'll have to go to the board.
Yeah.
So we bring this,
Take it
We don't
forward.
need to
Bring it
move
forward
to
next
the
week.
board
yes,
officially.
with our
Yep.
We have to move to the
Well,
board.
within the board, staff report to the board will probably indicate that the engineering committee recommends approval.
recommended.
Okay,
Okay,
that's what
yes,
you're saying.
mhm, exactly.
And if
Okay,
there's any other questions, I'll incorporate that, but you
All
just
right.
want some confirmation on the warranty.
okay. All right. Done with that. Item number 2.
Go ahead, James.
This, I tried to print this out. This is just the cost sheet. Because basically the original format is darn near impossible to read.
Yeah.
So, but however, so this is just to go over, as the committee may recall, we went ahead and met with Woodward Curran, and we got a scope together, brought to committee last fiscal year to award, I guess,
Thank you, gentlemen.
to award a groundwater study. We went to the board and it was not awarded at the board. And instead it was brought back and budgeted over this fiscal year. And that item actually went through as a line item in outside services to the finance committee and then of course through the board and approved through our budget. So with that, the district does have budget now for a groundwater study within our outside services and engineering.
Mm-hmm.
What the intent of this item being brought to committee was to confirm the scope, what we're going to get for a scope, what we're not going to get with this scope, and to make any adjustments that the committee may not want prior to bringing it to the board. Now, I don't want to go back and forth with the consultant too many times. After a while, they won't propose on my job. So, so just to kind of reiterate, this is basically a tabletop groundwater study. And what I mean by that is we are not modeling, we're not drilling wells, we're not mapping or figuring out the actual yield of the basin. Instead, the direction of this was really to look at what can we do potentially as a water resource with the groundwater basin here based on the existing tabletop information. I'm going to get into that a little bit, but really what we're looking at here is there's 4 main tasks, but essentially what we're doing is we're identifying whether we could use the groundwater here for recycled water or a non-potable use. We could use it for either kind of a potable recharge, so indirect potable use, or we could integrate it with EWA's system of bringing raw water in and putting it into groundwater for storage and taking it out with a treatment plant and using it for potable use. So we're looking at 3 different deliveries, 2 of them potable, 1 non-potable, and within those, what we're going to get for a scope is this is what it would look like. This is the infrastructure that you would have to build theoretically to make this happen. This is the amount of years it would take based on regulatory requirements and based on actually designing, planning, and implementing the actual facilities in a realistic format. And this is a planning level cost and a cost per acre foot. So you'll get big numbers, and I'm making these numbers up. 25 million, 35, 40 million dollars worth of infrastructure plus everything else, and then with operational costs, your cost per acre foot is 4, 5, 6,000, whatever per acre foot to get this type of water. And theoretically, you could get maybe 1 to 2 MGD or maybe more. The second part of this is what you're going to get is identifying a funding source. If you go down this route of non-potable, here are your funding opportunities, and here's a realistic estimate of best to worst case scenario, a range of the amount of funding you would get. And based on that, that would cut down your per acre water costs and it'll give us a range. or if you go down a potable, one of the potable options, here are the funding sources that are theoretically available, and here is an estimate between best case scenario of getting funding and worst case scenario. 0 is the worst case, so there'll be a range, and that will adjust the dollars per acre foot. And the last part of it, if we pick up the optional, which at the last time we were going to committee and board, the optional items were additional workshops and also a legal, basically overview. This is the legal hurdles and the legal costs that you would have to incur to adjudicate the basin, or to go down this road, or to, depending on which options that you picked. What we are not getting is we're not getting a modeled groundwater system. We're not getting any type of real hard data, test wells drilled, test wells evaluated, well pumping data, yield data, recharge data in the basin. That would all be next phase, depending on which options.
And that's probably $500,000 on up.
Yeah, that was
Probably
the
7 figures.
yeah, that was the $460,000 to $600,000 scope to get your foot in, just to do that portion of it. And then from there, then you got a $1 million scope to do the next portion. And the reason we went down this road was to kind of come up with a scope to give the board some real numbers and realistic timing. So, the amount of dollars it would take, the amount of time it would take, and the, approximate dollars per acre foot, and the legal hurdles for these different options. So this way the board as a whole can make a decision on whether this resource is a high priority, low priority, or medium priority for staff to pursue.
If the board's not interested in chasing $5,000 an acre foot water, then
Yeah.
you don't want to go spend $1 million to
Right.
do that.
Now, the tabletop work that's going to be done is based on our existing data that we have of, just where these potential aquifer basins are? Or are they just saying, well, we think there's 1 or 2 million gallons out there a day, and if that's the case, this is what you'll have to do?
It's a few different items. There's some existing well data that's
Mhm.
pretty readily available through the county.
Good.
Okay, there is 3 main studies. One is the Encina study, as far as from a water resource input. One's the 2005 Todd Engineering study, which was done for Vallecitos, which is, in that study itself, did the whole tabletop anyway. So that's we're not going to recreate their effort. So we're just going to use Todd Engineering's effort that looked at well data and looked at historical data of the
Okay.
basin.
Of our basin?
Of our basin, yep.
Okay.
And there's the North County Recycled Water Coalition study, which talks about water integration and how we can move water around.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, really the only item that is, there's no really new items. We've looked at this, I think Rob and I were talking about it. I think we've looked at this basin as a tabletop 4 different times, 4 different ways since 2005. So, and the results are the same. However, if based on the tabletop information, if the numbers were 1 to 2 MGD, let's say, which is what the tabletop information shows, then metrics on dollars per acre foot and ranges could be developed based on that. And then if there's an appetite for the board to pursue it further, that's when we're going to dig into it and spend some real money, and then we'll know whether it is 1 to 2 MGD or is it 3 to 4 MGD, and also what are the obstacles.
Mm-hmm.
But what has changed in the meantime is the price of water has changed, the
Right.
regulatory environment, the regulations regarding potable reuse. There's been enough things to change that it's worth taking a look at.
Yeah.
And the other big thing is you have 2 water resource potentials between Encina's raw water, potential future plans with their advanced water treatment or raw water augmentation with the aqueduct. That's a significant amount of water to come, basically into our backyard.
Mm-hmm.
And then the North County Coalition gives us an opportunity of integration to, if we can't use it all as potable, and if there's a recycled water use for it or a reuse for it, and there's a potential of distributing that not just for our own use, but more as an integrated system.
Mm-hmm.
So those things are also different from when Todd Engineering first looked at the original groundwater basin.
Okay.
So how much was put in the budget for the consultant portion of the project?
75.
Yeah, about 75,000 was put in the budget, and we still have to refine their numbers, but the number is 70 with the option 77.
Yeah.
And there was about $110,000 put in the budget total, including staff time.
Yeah, of the optional, I think the legal review is really important. I think the two important things since the last tabletop exercises are, like you said, a kind of a rough dollar per acre foot and this legal review. I think those are the two kind of go, no-go for doing something down the road.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we don't want to spend $20 million to deliver water there and find out that everybody else benefits and they're just
Right,
pumping
right,
their
we're
wells
just-
and taking
So
all.
I think this legal review should be a critical part of this project.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and the last direction from the committee before it kind of stopped at the board level was to authorize the whole scope, including both the optional items. And if we don't need the additional meetings, we won't get charged.
There
for
you
it.
go, I agree with
Mhm.
that.
Now, what is task 6?
Is that the legal?
That's the
legal.
legal.
That's the legal.
Additional
I've got-
legal review.
Do I have 2 numbers here that just?
It probably just looks like,
Additional.
well, the
Oh,
one,
yeah.
maybe it's a 5. There's 5 and 6, maybe it just looks like a 6 in the.
Well, there's the
There's a
total and the
subtotal.
subtotal, which
Yeah.
is, since it's only one line, it's the
Right.
same number. So it's
Oh.
11,000.
Oh, okay, yeah, I didn't, I
yeah, it's
thought there was 2 numbers, I thought there was 2 numbers,
11,598,
okay,
so-
very good, very good. All right. Yeah, I would agree, having both of those options in,
Yeah.
we have to, because I may sink a well myself and I wanna know that if I'm gonna not get pinched off because you guys do it.
You know, just anecdotally, I'm dealing with the golf course up there.
Yeah.
And they're really concerned about the groundwater. It's been diminishing,
Mhm.
the quality's getting worse and
Mhm.
worse, and they're planning in the future, trying to figure out how do they become a potable use golf course. It's
Yes, that has benefits for the district,
Yeah.
keeping them off of potable,
Yeah.
the rest of the system.
Right.
So they
Right,
may be
and-
interested in some augmentation.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
Because there's the recycled component that you were talking about. They don't need potable
No.
not for the grass and
When they even indicated they'd be willing to enter into some kind of a minimum take agreement, if it helps
Uh-huh,
the district
yeah.
get to a decision. If
Yeah.
having a known customer base, that's comforting, as
yes.
opposed to build it and hopefully they will.
Well, and
Yeah.
we haven't even begun to see if that is the same case with some of our agricultural users out there in the valley.
Yeah.
I mean, the mushroom people, man, that's a big
Yep.
big facility. They got to be using
Yeah,
potable water.
I mean, one of the easy discussion points, there's still the legal hurdles of it, is if Encina brings raw water into our backyard and we're able to basically take some of that and put it into our groundwater basin for irrigation use only, basically you'd have to adjudicate the basin and go to people with existing wells, and now you're charging them for the water that you're putting into the ground. That's a huge hurdle itself. And I don't know how we get beyond that hurdle.
Yeah.
But that's how you make sure that they have water in the basin.
Mm-hmm.
But if something like that comes to become, it looks realistic, then that's where mapping out the basin, figuring out the yield of the basin will become important, because if we could stick water in here, but if it doesn't get over there, it doesn't really matter.
Right.
You have to build distribution systems just to
Mhm.
put the
Yeah.
water in, especially because the way I read it from the Todd Engineering study is it's a shallow granitic basin that is made up of several different pools, if you will.
Mhm,
I
mhm.
call them teacups,
Yeah.
but basically small little areas, and you get small yield, and the cone is really localized, so
Right.
the drawdown goes really quick.
It's a small bluegill.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a sand basin.
And with that legal review, that would be the task that would identify what we would have to do relative, if it's adjudication. At one of the conferences I heard there's a junior adjudication. You don't have to go through the whole thing. Can't remember what it was discussed, how it was.
Yeah. This will
Couch.
highlight those
But
types
that
of
will
topics.
identify
Right.
Yeah, and it basically this would just tell you this is the steps you'd have to take. This is how long, an estimate of how long it would take. This is how much it would cost
Yeah.
you to do.
Okay.
So this way the board would have an idea of the legal hurdles in front of you, and it's a 5 to 10 year or 5 to 8 year or whatever horizon to even get through those legal hurdles.
Yeah.
And granted, you can work parallel,
Mhm.
but even if you get something done in 4 or 5 years, if the legal hurdles are 10 years or the regulatory hurdles are 10 years away, that kind of gives you your worst case scenarios at least.
Mhm.
Yeah. And this certainly isn't gonna resolve all the legal issues, it's just gonna identify what they
Yes.
are and say how
That,
long it'll
yeah,
take.
no, the
Or
identification.
what further work's needed to.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and how much
Yep,
and how
yep.
long and.
Mhm.
I have a feeling coming out of this will be some. These are probably going to be your issues, and it won't be definitive. Not every single thing will be identified. There will have to be some assumptions made,
Mhm.
and then from there, my hope is we have enough information between costing and estimates and timing that the board can make a comfortable decision.
Mhm.
Very good.
All right, I do have a public speaker on item number 2.
Yeah, okay. When the public speaks. I had occasion to talk to a small business directly across from the Twin Oaks Golf Course. And he had one of the original wells in this district. And it's been in the family for over 100 years. And it's gone dry because the golf course has put in big wells to support its substantial water use. And it seems like if we're going to use someone's aquifer that has been in use, that they should be compensated for somehow provided replacement water. The other issue I want to have addressed is the method by which water is introduced back into the aquifer. There are two major methods. One is injection, and the other is diffusion through surface
Like spreading.
pools. The injection, as the very first meeting you had on this subject, the consultant advised you that injection doesn't work. And the most telling experience with this is in the oil industry and fracking, because they inject water to move, displace oil. But they find that the injections doesn't work long because bacteria builds up, and the only way they can proceed is to add some form of formaldehyde to the water they're injecting to kill the bacteria. So that's a serious problem. We don't have very big or very deep aquifers except in the northern area, the Twin Oaks tributary. And those people are dealing primarily off of artesian wells. And they're beginning to get dry too. And the question I think is, do we replenish those wells, their groundwater? Do we go into shallower areas where there's a lot of potential pollutants? There has been a legal case with the 5 tribes on providing a replacement water for their groundwater system. And they sued and won, saying that they have the right to specify the quality of the water that's being injected, because a lot of what is used is the Colorado River water, which because of the drought is getting more and more saline. So I think these issues should be straightforwardly confronted in whatever study you have, and I would certainly hope that at least all the areas under consideration would be mapped out and discussed.
So just to kind of address your question, the study will not. The next level study, and you had a similar question when we brought this up last time. The next level study, which is that $400,000 to $600,000 study, will absolutely have to figure out where you could spread, what type of injection, extraction, spreading would need to be done to map out the whole system. This study will simply identify the framework in which to move forward to the next study. So in other words, this is basically, I hate to say it this way, but it's a study to prep for a study. This is a decision-making process, so this way the board has an idea of the gravity of the decision on cost and timing. for the options that are available for the board in regards to groundwater in the San Marcos Basin. And that's all it says. So we're not evaluating water quality. We're not evaluating water extraction or injection techniques. And basically the legal portion of it is only to identify that people have rights and you're going to have to address those rights, but not to actually go in and say this is how you address those rights.
Yeah.
Okay, but the legal case did establish that the quality of water that's interjected is a legal matter. And
Absolutely.
I would think that would have to be covered.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, yeah,
But
I mean, if they identify that's an issue, then
Yeah.
it can certainly be addressed.
yeah, but it's a sentence, is what I'm saying. It's not this is how you're addressing it. 'Cause we're not there yet until
Yeah.
we.
So
We
that's-
really won't be there yet until you're $2-3
Yeah,
million
I might
dollars.
say
in.
this is an issue and a further detailed study has, you know,
Yeah,
has
be
to look into
accomplished.
it.
Oh, yeah, no, all of those will have to be covered should we decide to go forward.
Yep.
Yeah, okay. Well, I think we would like to see both options that added to the scope and move forward with the full $77,744.
All right. Well, so we'll dust off the old staff report and update the numbers. Rob and I have a little bit of work to do on refining the scope. We have some questions on it.
Okay?
Minor things, just details to make sure we're getting what we assume or what we anticipate.
Okay,
So and then from there, we hope to bring this most likely to the first board meeting in October
okay.
for award.
Similar to the solar inverter, we'll
Yeah,
just say
yeah.
it was discussed at the
Okay.
committee supports going forward with the scope as provided.
So I based on our conversations, I anticipate minor changing in the number, not a major change. Nothing significant. So I just want to make sure that our expectations, the committee's expectations, and the staff's expectations are the same as the consultant. So we get a product that we're expecting.
Yeah,
Just to reiterate, I think the budget line item is $75,000, so the
Oh,
committee's
okay, well, then you're
recommending
gonna have to beat
something that's
Scott
a
up
little
for a
over,
couple
and
of
that's
thousand.
okay,
yeah.
but.
Oh, you'll,
But there's no line on it. It's outside services.
Oh, okay, I thought we'd had a specific $75,000.
No, and
Okay.
I put in 100 because I had
I
that
knew the
staff
staff
time too.
time, I knew that was in there too. but-
Yeah.
Okay.
So when
So we'll probably
you're
go
right,
for
it was
that.
75 for that, then we added staff time. But if we get a little higher than that, we'll just have to make sure Rob works pro bono.
That's right,
Yeah.
he's happy to do so.
Or Rob, you
like
can
you said,
beat
if
up
you don't-
Scott,
if you don't
get
meet
him
those
done.
meetings,
That's right.
It's not
Yeah.
a big deal.
Yeah.
That could be the sacrificial lamb.
Yeah.
Other business, I'm sorry I was not here at the last meeting, but where are we at with the solar panel?
The district-wide?
Yeah, district-wide.
Yeah. You know that?
Sure. We're actually bringing that to the board next board meeting.
Oh, okay.
September 19th, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Next board meeting, I have the same presentation that the board's already seen, but instead of the engineer, the actual vice president of Terra Verde will be there this time. But I'll give the presentation.
Okay.
Basically, we're moving forward as committee's direction, which is with the up to 3 projects, move forward with design. So I'm
And-
going to explain what the 3 projects are, which are essentially NEM project at LS1,
Uh-huh.
and there will be some discussion on whether that's the best use for that property or not. If the board asks that, the way I'm going to address it is, if that site develops in the future, the NEM project could be purchased out, or it could be moved on to the roofs, and we can still get credit for it. It would just add cost to whoever develops that project.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, if that's an issue for the board, then that's okay. But if it isn't, that's how we can address it. A large 2 megawatt, I'm trying to remember the number.
Yep.
I think 2
2
megawatt system at Twin Oaks,
Mm-hmm.
which is a Resbit project.
On top of the tanks.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
Is the second project as far as from a dollar savings per amount of effort goes. And the third is a floating solar project at Mar, which still needs a little further discussion with Livenhain to see if there's some joint opportunities there.
Mm-hmm.
But all 3 projects were kind of recommended to move forward. We finished the study finally. Took a little longer than anticipated, just between comment reviews and checks. And we're going to move forward with all 3 of those projects.
Now,
And they're all 3 PPAs, by the way, power purchase agreements. So
Uh-huh.
there will be very minimal to no out-of-pocket capital costs for the district.
Now, I talked with the manager relative to how we're proceeding. Are we proceeding with the design and then it's gonna be a bid build program?
It's a PPA, so it's more of a design build implementation, but not really, because we don't own the facility
Right.
at all.
We just tell the contractors what we want.
So the beauty of that is there's a performance guarantee, and there'll be minimal amount of staff time. We're still, because they're using our facilities, there's still a lot of coordination,
Right.
and there's still time to ensure that we're going to get what we were promised. But unlike a facility that we take over and we own, if they cut a corner on the facility and there's maintenance issues because they cut a corner, that's going to be on them.
Mhm.
So it behooves them to build a facility that requires less maintenance.
Now, these may be facilities we own in the future. There may be buyout. I think there will
Yes,
be
there will be
buyout
buyout
provisions at
provisions,
certain. Usually at the end of the initial
20, 25
7.
years.
There's like a 7-year when the tax breaks stop. That's an off ramp, and then there's
And
other.
this is the same group that did the study? Is that,
No, so the
They're-
group that did the study is not eligible to develop the project. So
okay,
they're our representative to develop basically the package, which is basically an RFP, it's a request for proposal.
oh, so that's
package.
what they're doing relative to the design?
James, why don't you explain the 3 phases of
Yeah,
Trevor is?
because I'm getting
Sure.
design, that's why I asked,
Sure,
it sounds
yeah.
like we already got a guy,
So basically-
contractor involved.
So basically, there's, in kind of just a real simple thing, there's planning, design, and construction,
Right.
right? So, but in this case, the planning is a study that's been presented to the committee and gonna get presented to the board, and now it's kind of finalized.
So we're at the end of the first
Yeah.
phase.
Right.
First phase. The second phase is really putting for lack of better explanation, a design build packet together. So even when you do it, because I've done several design build projects,
Yeah,
there's still a certain level of design effort, and there's still a performance spec and everything else that needs
Right.
to be completed. So basically getting all that together, going out to the market to find solar developers,
mm-hmm,
people who actually build the system, and enter into a PPA agreement.
right, and
So-
that
That's the
portion
next- that's
is the same group that did the plan?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
the RFP, if you
Yep.
will.
Yeah, to
Yep.
develop it.
Okay.
Okay, and then the construction portion, what their job is to do is to ensure the paperwork and the final SCG&E and handle any construction change issues. If the developer says, "Hey, I want to change this," to make sure that we're, as the owner's rep, they're representing us. We're still getting the product that we thought from our original performance spec.
So Terra Verde will do all 3 of those phases.
Yeah, but they're not the ones building it.
They're
So
not building it.
Wait a second, I'm a little confused. I know they did the plan, I know they're gonna do the RFP,
Did-
but did I hear that the RFP was a design build to actually put the full design together and actually build the panels on the site?
Not by them.
not by
Not by them, but they're gonna take
Another
the
party.
RFP and put that out, and then we're gonna find
And
these,
they're going to help us select
Fine,
who
yeah,
the
select.
best deal is.
right,
And then when we enter into an agreement with that
whoever
third party,
that new group,
then
Yeah.
Terra Verde becomes our kind of construction manager
Oh,
exactly.
type
Very
of.
good.
Really program manager.
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
all right,
program.
very good, now I get the different boxes.
And we can stop the agreement with Terra Verde at any time.
Yeah,
If,
okay,
for
no,
example,
I-
if the board wanted to stop at the end of this planning
Mhm.
phase, we can.
Okay,
Or if we go out to the market and the power purchase agreements don't look favorable compared to what the planning numbers were, there's no obligation for us to move forward.
okay. Now help me with the nomenclature, because I'm just entering this with my own home, potentially. We have the power purchase agreement,
Mhm.
the PPA, then there's also an outright purchase, if we wanted to purchase it ourselves,
cash
own it
fund
our
it,
own.
yeah.
then what's
Maintain
it?
it ourselves.
Cash fund it, yeah.
Cash funded, is that what they refer to?
Well, it's just owner.
Owner owned.
Okay,
owner,
owner,
yeah.
okay. And is there another one, another way to do this where, I don't even know,
I don't know, it's about the only 2 ways.
Did
Those
Those
are about
two?
the only two ways
Yeah.
for
either own it or you,
or you're leasing it, essentially.
okay, okay.
There's little variations on the
All right.
theme. Like
Yeah.
I said, with the PPA, there's an ownership potential at the end. So it's
Okay,
kind of,
yeah.
in a way, a hybrid, but it's just a buyout. at the
Okay,
back
all
end.
right, so those are the two. All right, very good. All right, let's see.
And you may, just as a reminder, you may recall on the floating cover at MAR,
Uh-huh.
one of the issues we had to resolve is that the way the agreement is structured for the sale of recycled water, They just basically cover the costs. So if we undertook a project to lower the costs,
That's
Carlsbad
just a
and
bit-
Linden
yeah.
would benefit. So
Exactly.
we have to restructure
Yeah,
those
yeah,
agreements
relook
and
at
find
that.
out why would they,
Mhm.
how are they gonna help
Sure,
us do
no,
this?
that
Because
makes
it doesn't help
sense.
us, it helps them.
Yeah, no, that makes good sense. All right, let's see, I have a public speaker on the public comments.
Yeah, okay. First, I think it is essential that if you have any solar project, that you consider some sort of battery storage system. Because the costs of SDG&E power is going up substantially. And with the CCAs, you're gonna pay very much heavier prices for off peak duty periods than
Mhm.
what they're putting into the analysis. There are a couple of ways people are doing this. Some is to buy their own storage, some is working with a private company who's builds the system. Palomar College does that. And you have to be very careful as to how the compensation is worded, because sometimes it's worded so that when SDG prices go up, they get most of the benefit from it. You also have plants which use power 24 hours a day, much more than any ordinary user goes through. So storage should be part and parcel of any solar project that you undertake.
Well, good news, the Terra Verde study actually looked specifically at battery storage. So they looked at every site with and without battery storage.
Yeah.
The payback was significantly worse with the battery storage, with the size of projects that we're looking at, and the type of energy use and the flexibility of energy use we have in our systems, because we could off-peak, most of our pump stations. The battery storage didn't pan out and reduced the amount either of it reduced the savings, outright savings, or it reduced the payback, it increased the payback window.
It's the cost of the battery.
Yeah.
Because the cost of batteries, as battery technologies increases over the years, though, one of the things that we did build into the performance spec as we move forward is to have that adaptability.
Okay, all right.
Now,
I
if we-
understand all that, but the increase of rates have been historically much higher, and every indication it is going to go substantially higher still.
Well, but the issue is with the PPA, and all the ones I've ever seen is they give you one flat rate, and
Yep.
that's good for the life of the contract.
Yeah,
And
that,
the
and
risk
that's,
is on them.
Yeah.
the risk is
Yeah.
on them, and the pro forma was a 20 to 25 year pro forma for each site.
Mm-hmm.
Now, they made assumptions on the SDG&E increases, but they did take in the known SDG&E rate increase requests to the CPUC, which is something like 20-something% over the next several years.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, they used just a standard average increase rate.
4 or 5%.
Yeah, it was like 4% or something like that after that. And when we commented on that, Terra Verde's answer was solid. We really can't. We think we know this is what they've requested over the next 3 to 5 years.
That's all.
Everything else we just have to guess based on the
Crystal
story.
balls, no
Yeah,
good.
so
And
when, you,
with-
so when you start out, as a owner, you're paying a little bit less than what that PPA guaranteed price is, and so
Mhm.
your hope is that
As SDG&E
as
increases rates
it'll
more, your
go
savings
higher
go-
than that.
Yeah.
The
And-
guaranteed rate.
And that's actually true of, for example, our solar panels here. When we started out, we thought it'd be about a $90,000 a year savings. Now the panels have degraded, but yet the real number is close to 130 now because of SDG&E rate hikes.
Yeah.
So you're saving more money, but only just because the rates went up.
Well, I want to finish that portion of my comment is that the CCNAs are going to have a big impact. And the off-peak period prices is going to go skyrocketing. And Sempra is placing itself in a position where if that happens, they'll profit mightily, and it's to be considered. The last comment is just a clarification for the GM. I requested to be able to view a copy of the general plan
The master plan.
and, yeah,
The master
not the EIR that you had mentioned in your email.
It'll be one and the same.
No, well,
The
you
EIR
plan to, the EIR, the general plan has to be
the
drafted.
master plan.
Well, I want to see the draft.
Yeah, the draft master plan is, there's none that, we can't give you one. We don't have one.
You don't have it.
So-
they're gonna be available at the same time.
Okay,
It'll be available at the same time.
And when is that?
We're trying
I'm
to get it
I'm
on
hoping
October.
that-
board
yeah.
docket in October.
We're not sure
So
if
it's
it's gonna
after
be
the
the first.
Newland Sierra decision, and you're over 2 years late with it. Do you know how bad that's gonna look?
No, it's got nothing to do with Newlands here because
I
Newlands
know
here
it
is still
doesn't,
not an
I
approved
did
land
say
use.
that.
So,
I said, do you realize how bad it's gonna look as far as transparency? If there's nothing for me to see at this point, and it comes out after the Newland Sierra, and the Newland Sierra is based on an obsolete plan.
well, the
I'm
Newland
not,
Sierra
I'm
is
not
not,
following the argument.
We just
here.
set up, it's not related to Newland Sierra. The
Yeah.
master plan and
I
Newland
know
Sierra.
that, but it's gonna be interconnected
Uh,
externally.
can't, I'm kind of missing the connection here.
You're just
2
saying
years
perception
late,
wise.
And it comes just after Newland Sierra, the political ramifications gonna be.
The
pretty
perception you're
Yeah.
talking about.
high. Yeah,
We can't deal with the perception.
Yeah.
but
the good news is there's no Newland Sierra consideration in our master plan.
Yeah.
So the perception maybe from Newland Sierra, like why aren't you in our master plan? But from the other side, the general plan that was adopted used for the basis of land use in our master plan did not have Newland Sierra as an adopted land use.
so that's gonna be additional?
No, they're not considered.
It'll be in the next
In other
update
words,
of the master plan.
yes, so the GPU
The
2011.
existing one doesn't cover it,
So the master plan
what's
is
coming
going,
up.
is gonna have the general plan update of 2011 for the county as its basis in it. That does include Newland Sierra. Now, if Newland Sierra becomes an approved land use, we're not gonna deal with that until
The next
sometime in the future with the next master plan, whether that's, is sometime in the 20s.
But it's gonna be built before then.
Yeah, but we do water sewer studies to identify
Right.
the impacts. That's basically a water sewer study like a lot of other agencies. Some people call them SAPs, sub-area master plans.
But we suspended all the impact fees.
No, it's not an impact fee. That's
But that's one of the results.
that's completely irrelevant to the water sewer study. The water sewer study is facility impacts, what they have to build to make themselves whole with whatever adopted land use and adopted water use document that we have. So we have an adopted document, which is their current master plan. They have a water sewer study that says, hey, you're not in here, and here's the delta, and based on that delta, this is what you have to build and supply and do
And pay
to make
for it.
and pay for it to make yourself whole.
Yep,
So
that neutralizes it.
basically that's how, whether it's Newland Sierra or somebody building in San Marcos Boulevard, they still get a water sewer study. Their water sewer study just says a lot less.
Yeah.
So, but basically, other agencies like Otay Water District will call that a sub-area master plan, a SAM. So, but it's basically to make that specific project whole with the adopted master plan. So, but yeah, but if you go through our, when it comes out, because I haven't even seen a document yet personally, I haven't seen a document yet. When it comes out, you won't find this is a facility for Newland Sierra anywhere in that document. In the programmatic EIR, I believe we talk about projects like Newland Sierra as a future project that may or may not happen.
Yeah, so there will be a small section in both the master plan and also in the draft EIR that mentions Newland Sierra as something that's potentially out there in the future, not going to be incorporated as part of this master plan. And that's it.
Okay,
Okay, I'll pass that word along.
very good.
Yeah, I mean, but, I'd like to point out, there's legally required water supply assessment for any proposed development over,
Oh, yeah.
what is it, 500 units?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And they've
So, I
done
mean,
they've
that's-
done the WSA.
Well, yeah, a few times.
So
Very good. With that, I think we're adjourned.
Okay.
All right.